On July 20th, 1973, the world's most famous fighter walked into an apartment and never walked out alive. Bruce Lee, a man who could knock people down with just a tiny punch, a guy who seemed like he had superpowers, died when he was only 32 years old. But here's the weird part. He wasn't found at home with his family. Someone found him passed out in the bedroom of a 26-year-old actress named Betty Ting Pei. And for 50 years, everyone has been told the same story. He was allergic to some medicine. Case closed. Nothing more to see. But what if I told you that's totally wrong? What if the very things that made Bruce Lee amazing were actually the things that killed him? What if his need to be perfect created the perfect disaster that took him down? Because new proof shows Bruce Lee didn't die from some random allergy to medicine. He died from something so simple, so normal that it'll make you question everything you thought you knew about the man who changed fighting forever. And when you hear what really happened in that apartment, and more importantly, what happened 2 months before his death that everyone ignored, you're going to realize this mystery goes way deeper than anyone wanted you to know. Bruce Lee came screaming into this world on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown during one of the craziest times in history. His mother, Grace, had a big dream. She named him Lee Jun-fan, which means return again. She wanted him to come back to America one day, but life had other plans first. Just 4 months later, baby Bruce was sent to Hong Kong. And if you think your childhood was tough, wait until you hear about his. When Japan attacked Hong Kong with their army, Bruce spent his early years living under enemy soldiers, not enough food, fights breaking out in the streets, and the kind of scary stuff that changes a kid forever. While other children were playing with toys, Bruce was learning how to stay alive in a war zone. But here's where it got cool. By age 9, this kid was already acting in movies. By 18, he'd been in 20 films. Most teenagers were still figuring out what they wanted to eat for lunch, and Bruce was already a working actor with years of experience. But being famous couldn't protect him from the problems at home. His father got addicted to a dangerous drug called opium. The family was falling apart. Bruce was getting into more street fights than a tough guy at a rough bar. And his mixed background made him an outsider in his own neighborhood. But then something happened that changed everything. At 13, Bruce met a fighting teacher named Ip Man. But here's the crazy part. Ip Man said no to Bruce at first. Not because Bruce couldn't fight, but because his mother was part European, which made Bruce mixed blood in the eyes of old-school Chinese fighting teachers. Think about that for a second. The future fighting legend almost got turned away because of racism. Luckily, a friend talked Ip Man into giving Bruce a chance. And once Bruce started training, something just clicked. This wasn't just a fun activity for him. It became something he thought about all the time that would take over his entire life. He practiced constantly, every free moment, every spare second. How hard he worked was crazy, even by today's standards. But that need to be perfect, that need to push past every limit, that's also what would eventually kill him. Bruce got into a rooftop fight with students from a different martial arts school. He didn't just win. He knocked out one kid's teeth so hard that the family went to the police. His mother realized Bruce was heading down a dangerous path, either jail or worse. So, she made a decision that saved his life for now, but set up his death 15 years later. She sent him back to America, back to that country where he was born during the Hour of the Dragon. But Bruce didn't just want to learn martial arts in America. He wanted to completely change them. And that change was about to get very messy. An 18-year-old Bruce Lee got off a plane in Seattle with nothing but dreams and fists that could move faster than most people could see. He started working as a live-in waiter while finishing high school. But in his free time, he was doing something that was about to make him enemies for life. He was teaching martial arts to anyone who wanted to learn. Black students, white students, Latino students, Asian students. It didn't matter what you looked like or where you came from. And if that sounds normal to you, then you don't understand how crazy that was back then. Traditional Chinese martial arts were supposed to stay inside Chinese families. Secret moves passed down through bloodlines, but Bruce said that was complete nonsense and he was going to teach anyone who was willing to learn. This decision basically put a target on his back. But Bruce didn't care. He went to the University of Washington, studied philosophy, and kept developing his own fighting system. He called it Jun Fan Gung Fu, which was his twist on traditional Wing Chun. But Bruce quickly realized something that would change martial arts forever. Traditional styles were too stiff, too easy to predict, too limited for real fighting. So he started mixing in boxing moves, wrestling techniques, sword-fighting footwork. He was basically creating mixed martial arts decades before anyone knew what MMA was. Bruce got invited to perform at the Long Beach International Karate Championships. This was his chance to show the world what he could do, and he absolutely blew people's minds. First, he did 2 finger push-ups, holding up his entire body weight on just his thumb and pointer finger. Then, he showed off his famous 1-inch punch, sending a grown man flying backward with barely any wind-up. The crowd went crazy. But the traditional martial arts community, they were angry because Bruce wasn't just showing off. He was proving that their old techniques were outdated. And some people don't take that kind of disrespect lying down. Enter Wong Jack Man, a young martial artist fresh from China who had been chosen to shut Bruce up once and for all. The fight happened behind closed doors at Bruce's Oakland school. No cameras, no official record, just a few witnesses who all told completely different stories about what went down. Bruce's wife, Linda, said it was over in 3 minutes. Bruce beat Wong and won big, but other witnesses claimed it lasted 20 to 25 minutes with no clear winner. Wong Jack Man himself said Bruce fought like a crazy bull with wild, dangerous attacks and that he held back his strongest techniques out of respect. Here's what we know for sure. After that fight, Bruce never publicly talked about it. When Wong challenged him to a rematch in the newspapers, Bruce stayed quiet. Some people say he was being classy. Others think he was scared of losing round 2. But something definitely changed in Bruce after that fight. He realized that even his modified Wing Chun wasn't enough. He needed to grow beyond any single fighting system. So he created Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist, a martial art with no fixed form, no strict rules. Be like water, he said. Flowing, adaptable, unstoppable. But Bruce was about to discover that being like water came with its own deadly risks. And the perfectionist who changed martial arts was about to make a series of decisions that would create the perfect storm for his own destruction. Bruce Lee woke up in his Hong Kong home and started his usual morning routine. 45 minutes of intense exercise, stretching, cardio on his homemade exercise bike. Jeet Kune Do practice, weight training. Everything looked normal. Just another day for the most disciplined athlete on the planet. Later that morning, Bruce arrived at Golden Harvest Studios to work on the script for Game of Death with producer Raymond Chow. They were putting the finishing touches on what was supposed to be Bruce's next masterpiece. But here's something that wasn't common knowledge back then. Bruce had been trying cannabis, not to get high, but because he believed it opened his mind and made him a better martial artist. And in Hong Kong's rich people circles, chewing cannabis was pretty common among wealthy people. So Bruce having some that day wasn't unusual. That afternoon, Bruce jumped into his red Mercedes and drove to 67 Beacon Hill Road to a second-floor apartment where a 26-year-old Taiwanese actress named Betty Ting Pei was waiting for him. Now, officially, Bruce was there to discuss the Game of Death script. But everyone knew Betty wasn't just another actress in Bruce's circle. She was his mistress. The affair had been going on for months. And in Hong Kong's tight-knit celebrity scene, secrets like that don't stay secret forever. According to Betty's later story, Bruce seemed relaxed when he arrived. They had sex, shared some cannabis, and talked about the film. But then evening rolled around. Raymond Chow showed up to pick up Bruce and Betty for dinner. They were supposed to meet with George Lazenby, the former James Bond actor who Bruce wanted for Game of Death, but Bruce complained of a headache. Now, here's where things got interesting. And by interesting, I mean this is where the cover-up began. It was time to leave for dinner, but Bruce's headache had gotten worse. Betty, trying to help, gave him a pill called Equagesic. It was a common painkiller that mixed aspirin with a sleeping medicine. Bruce said he wanted to lie down and rest. Raymond left for dinner alone, telling Betty to bring Bruce when he felt better. But Bruce never felt better. Raymond called Betty twice from the restaurant, asking when they were coming. The first time, Betty said Bruce was sleeping. The second time she said he was still sleeping, but she was about to wake him up. But when Betty quietly walked into the bedroom and tried to wake him up, Bruce didn't respond. She shook him harder. Nothing. She shouted his name. Still nothing. Bruce Lee was unconscious and not breathing. Betty called Raymond in a panic. He raced back to the apartment and found Bruce lying naked on the mattress, completely unresponsive. Now, imagine being Raymond Chow in that moment. Your best friend and biggest star was dead in his mistress's bed, and you were the only witnesses. The scandal would destroy everyone involved. So, what did Raymond do? He made a decision that would haunt this case for 50 years. He told Betty to call her personal doctor, Dr. Chu. When Dr. Chu arrived and couldn't revive Bruce, they faced a choice. Report Bruce dead in Betty's apartment or try to save everyone's reputation. They chose the cover-up. Instead of calling the police immediately, Dr. Chu called an ambulance and had Bruce's body taken to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which was 25 minutes away instead of the much closer Baptist hospital where Dr. Chu worked. The paramedics performed CPR during the drive, but it was too late. Bruce Lee was pronounced dead that night, but the location where he died wasn't Betty's apartment in the official report. It was conveniently listed as on the way to the hospital. The cover-up worked in terms of protecting reputations, but it also meant that crucial evidence about Bruce's final hours got buried, and what the investigation missed would have solved this mystery decades earlier. The official autopsy report said Bruce Lee died of cerebral edema, brain swelling caused by an allergic reaction to the Equagesic painkiller. But from day one, nobody believed that story. How does a simple painkiller kill the world's most fit martial artist? A guy who was in perfect physical shape at the peak of his career with abs you could grate cheese on. It didn't make sense. So, the conspiracy theories started flying faster than Bruce's nunchucks. The most popular theory: the Chinese martial arts community had Bruce killed using Dim Mak, the legendary death touch, one precise hit to a pressure point that kills you hours or days later. Others claimed the Hong Kong gangs murdered him because he refused to pay protection money. Some people pointed to Bruce's use of cannabis and suggested drug-related causes, even though medical experts dismissed marijuana as a factor. But here's the detail that really got people talking. The Betty Ting pay scandal. The media went absolutely crazy when they found out where Bruce died. Headlines screamed about affairs and mistresses. Betty became the target of mean rumors and death threats. She insisted they were just close friends working on a film together, but the public wasn't buying it. In their minds, Bruce Lee died in his mistress's bed, and that had to mean something suspicious was going on. Betty later said living with those rumors was like a nightmare that lasted years. Every time Bruce's name came up in the news, her name got dragged through the mud all over again. But while everyone was focused on the scandalous location of Bruce's death, they were missing the real clues. Because 2 months earlier, something happened that should have been a huge red flag. Bruce was on the set of Enter the Dragon when he suddenly collapsed. Same symptoms as his final day: headache, dizziness, and brain swelling. He was rushed to the hospital, treated, and got better. But here's the crazy part. No serious follow-up was done. No long-term watching, no investigation into what caused the brain swelling in the first place. It was treated as a one-time incident, and everyone moved on. But that earlier collapse was actually Bruce's body sending him a warning that got completely ignored. And then there's the surgery detail that most people don't know about. Bruce had his underarm sweat glands surgically removed.
Why?
Because he wanted to look perfect on camera without visible sweat stains. It sounds like a minor cosmetic procedure, but removing sweat glands can seriously mess with your body's ability to control temperature, especially in hot, humid climates like Hong Kong. Some experts think this surgery made Bruce more likely to get heat stroke. But the real breakthrough came decades later. A team of Spanish kidney doctors published a study that changed everything. They believed Bruce Lee died from something so simple, so ordinary that it would be funny if it weren't so sad. And when the Lee family tragedy struck again years later, people started wondering if there was some kind of curse following them. Bruce's son, Brandon Lee, was filming a scene for The Crow when a prop gun broke and accidentally shot him in the stomach. He died at the hospital at age 28. 2 generations of Lee men dead in their prime from completely random accidents. The coincidence seemed too brutal to be real. But the truth about Bruce's death wasn't about curses or conspiracies. It was about something much more ordinary and much more disturbing. Here's what really killed Bruce Lee. And I promise you, it's going to sound absolutely crazy. Water. The same element Bruce compared himself to in his be like water philosophy may have been the thing that killed him. A team of Spanish doctors published a study suggesting Bruce Lee died from hyponatremia. That's a fancy medical term for drinking too much water. I know what you're thinking. How can drinking water kill someone? Here's how it worked. When you drink huge amounts of liquid too quickly, your kidneys can't keep up. Your blood sodium levels drop dangerously low. And when that happens, your brain starts to swell. Cerebral edema, the same cause of death listed in Bruce's autopsy. The Spanish researchers noted that Bruce was known for drinking enormous amounts of liquids throughout the day: water, juice, protein shakes. He was constantly drinking, especially during intense workouts. And remember that surgery where he removed his sweat glands? That meant his body couldn't cool itself properly through sweating. So, he'd drink even more fluids to try to stay cool in Hong Kong's brutal heat and humidity. But here's where it got really twisted. The collapse on the Enter the Dragon set, that was probably his first episode of water poisoning. His brain swelled up. He got dizzy and passed out. But he got better. Instead of investigating what caused it, everyone just moved on. 2 months later, Bruce had another hyponatremia episode, but this time his brain couldn't handle the swelling. Game over. The Equagesic painkiller that Betty gave him, it probably didn't help, but it wasn't the main killer. It was just the final straw on top of an already dangerous situation. So, let's put this together. Bruce Lee, the ultimate perfectionist, died from a combination of his own obsessions. His vanity surgery removing sweat glands made him vulnerable to overheating. His obsessive drinking habits meant he was constantly drinking too much liquid. His disciplined workout routine in hot, humid Hong Kong pushed his body to the breaking point. His history of ignoring warning signs meant he didn't get proper medical watching after his first collapse. The warrior who preached be like water literally drowned himself from the inside. It's the kind of ironic tragedy that would be perfect for a movie, except it was real life and it cost the world one of the most influential figures in martial arts history. Bruce Lee didn't die from an enemy's death touch. He didn't get murdered by the gangs. He wasn't killed by his mistress or a painkiller allergy. He died because he was so committed to physical perfection that he ignored his own body's warning signs and pushed himself beyond human limits. The man who seemed superhuman was ultimately defeated by the most human thing imaginable. He got thirsty, drank too much water, and his body couldn't handle it. Today, doctors know a lot more about exercise, drinking water, and the dangers of drinking too much. Sports medicine has gotten better. We understand heat stroke, hyponatremia, and the importance of electrolyte balance. But back then, Bruce Lee was basically doing an experiment on himself with no safety net. And the saddest part, if someone had properly investigated his first collapse, they could have figured out the pattern. They could have saved his life. Instead, the legend died at 32. And the world spent 50 years chasing conspiracy theories when the truth was hiding in plain sight. Bruce Lee once said, "Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger men." He got his wish. He became one of the strongest men who ever lived. But even the strongest man on earth can't survive when his own perfectionism becomes his greatest enemy. The dragon didn't fall to a worthy opponent. He fell to something as simple and essential as H2O. Sometimes the most extraordinary stories have the most ordinary endings, and sometimes being like water means drowning in it.